can you explain why would a website or a platform like LinkedIn want to ban someone like you, who's a highly decorated researcher, doctor, scientist? Why would they want to ban you? How many? By the way, how many do you hold any patents on vaccines?
No, all of the patents that I once had expired long ago, and I never got any revenue from them anyhow.
Okay, but you did at one time hold patents on vaccines.
Correct.
Okay.
On the vaccine platform technology relating to RNA in particular, also DNA, also these a number of these cationic lipids that we developed in particular for the research market. My wife and I once held the broad patent on mucosal vaccines. Pfizer tried to license it from us and then told us they would just destroy us if we tried to challenge them, so they really didn't need to license it.
So you go ahead.
So yeah, I've held a number of domestic and foreign patents in this area, together with other authors.
So I don't think it's overstating it to say you're kind of a giant in the research industry. You're a pioneer. You worked at the Salk Institute.
Well, that's kind. Yes, there are those who would dispute that, but
of course,
that's kind for you to say. But yeah, I had a good practice as a expert in this area, particularly in clinical research and regulatory affairs. A lot of depth in the biodefense industry, but also really rigorous training in bioethics, which you have to do clinical research. I guess I was stupid financially in taking it seriously, whereas apparently a lot of my colleagues didn't. So that's where I was at when, as I say, when I came out over 3 years ago, came out of the closet on this, on the Brett Weinstein podcast and other places, and then notoriously Joe Rogan. I was really pissed that I was seeing the government steamroll over all the things that I had been taught you needed to do. The testing to make sure that things are safe and effective, the informed consent to ensure that people really understood what they were doing, the suppression of disclosures concerning adverse events that was so rampant in the United States, Europe, and Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. All these things were major ethical transgressions and were completely at odds with what I had been taught was the normal way to proceed. Also, the FDA, in their push with Operation Warp Speed, basically threw out the rule book for what you're supposed to do when you're bringing a new product forward to ensure that it minimizes the risk that there'll be damage to patients, to humans. And all of this was just wrong. And so I spoke out about it. And then, one thing led to another. I got all the attacks and censorship and ridicule and all that stuff. I can go down the laundry list. Or you can just read my Wikipedia page if you want to get a summary of all my supposed sins in spreading misinformation, which they never, Matt Schlapp did a great piece. You know Matt, probably.
Yes.
Jimmy. Okay, so Matt's a good friend. His farm is just about 5 miles away from us. Matt and Mercy and their kids are good friends. He did a piece the other day where he was paired with another commentator, somebody from the left, and the person started going off about conservatives and the jab and all the things that they've said and the mis and disinformation. And Matt just called him straight to the carpet and he said, "Name one thing that we got wrong." And the guy was gobsmacked. He could not name a single thing that the so-called conservative conspiracy theorists had got wrong. Because we got it right. And it's not because we're such geniuses.
We're not even conservative.
It's just because we were just following the facts and speaking truth. It didn't take a great mental leap to do this. It just took some integrity and the courage to speak the truth. That's all it took.
So why do you think that a platform like LinkedIn, which is just supposed to be where
Right.
people, why would they?
It is part of the, like, come on, it is part of the Microsoft network.
Oh,
there you go.
I didn't realize that. Okay, now I get it.
I was deplatformed from LinkedIn, which I had built my practice on. I mean, I had a huge network of other professionals and information, records, videos, photographs going back decades. My testimony at the World Health Organization on influenza vaccines, my work on supporting the Ebola vaccine, photographs from inside the WHO, including the old Director General. I mean, I have been in this business pretty deeply for a long time. And they deplatformed me twice. The first time, Steve Kirsch intervened with the vice president at LinkedIn, and he reviewed the fact checker people that had made the decision I should be deplatformed. And his conclusion he wrote to me was, we don't have the competency to fact check you. We don't have the talent to determine whether what you've said is true or false. That was the first time. And so they put me back on. Thank you, Steve. And then the second time, my sin was twofold. First off, I pointed out that the former chairman of Reuters was also a chairman on the board of directors for Pfizer, and that this was a conflict of interest. That was a sin. The other one was that I reposted a slide deck from the Canadian COVID Care Alliance that detailed the specifics of the, let's say, gently malfeasance that occurred during the Pfizer clinical trials, the data editing, misrepresentation, and other forms of what appear to be research fraud. And this, I think Bree Dressen is one of the ones that's attempting to prosecute this. But everything that was in the Canadian COVID Care Alliance slide deck was true, but it was cited as the specific reason for deplatforming me, both in LinkedIn and on Twitter. And I wasn't reinstated on Twitter until Mr. Musk came back and did some investigations, which led to all the disclosures about the censorship industrial complex.
So now I just can't. So to me, like a place like LinkedIn, it's so how do your peers react to something like this? Like they just turn their head because they don't want the Nazi regime to come for them too? Is that what happens?
I think that there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. Some rubbernecking, but Jimmy, one of the things that's happened that has just torn the scientific community apart and destroyed the integrity of peer review process, destroyed the independence of the journals, which were already compromised because most of them are controlled by corporations that are part of the small insider group at the WEF. The top 1,000 companies or the top 100 companies own most of the medical journals now. That's also been documented in peer-reviewed studies. But the CDC, just as one example, ran a little program in which they took money from the Foundation for CDC, which is their structure to allow charitable donations from pharma and Gates to the CDC. So that gives them a slush fund that they then redirected to an entity called the Public Good Projects. This is all disclosed due to Freedom of Information Act. PGP then funded a program called Shots Heard Around the World. What Shots Heard Around the World did was seek medical influencers across social media and set up a organizational structure basically for crowd stalking, which is illegal, by the way, in which they would send out email blasts to this network of medical influencers, PhDs, MDs, et cetera, all across the world, saying that thus and such person had said something that was mis or disinformation and needed to be attacked and censored. And then you would get this. So, we all hear about Russian bot and troll farms, right? But the CDC set up their own bot and troll farm of medical professionals and PhDs under the Shots Heard Around the World program to attack any professionals who were saying things that the CDC didn't like, that were different from the approved narrative from the CDC or the World Health Organization. And so what you had was the medical and scientific community just tore itself apart, all funded and fostered by, again, this same censorship industrial complex toolkit that we've seen deployed in everything else that Schellenberger and so many others have documented. So that's what transpired here. And you're absolutely right. The medical journals have clearly become compromised.
Hey, come see us do a live stand-up show. We're going to be in Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, London, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Edmonton, Alberta, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Denver, Colorado. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.